Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist with degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy, and a national certification in integrative mental health. In this video, I'm not looking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. Hey everybody, happy Sunday. Did you guys know that five corporations control 90% of the media, right? This is in a 2021 study by Business Insider. So maybe less than 5 at this point, but that's 90% of the media. So thinking that, it's polarized, it has something to do with politics, and of those 5 corporations, their biggest stockholder is one company. Okay, so that's from a 2021 study. Those companies were Comcast, Disney, Warner Brothers, Paramount, and Fox. All funnel into the same place. All right, but before I prove to you that you make way less decisions than you think you do, let's say hello to people. Adric is in the Morpheus position. Maybe, I don't know, should we call it Morpheus on Sundays? I think it's something different. You guys come up with a name. I can't think. Excuse me. Anyway, Adric is here. Hello, Adric. Spain Man says, let's go. Nina is here with the peace sign. Thank you for being here, my favorite auntie. Chef Mike's Roundtable says, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to you. Thank you for being here. Leon is here in the chat, says hello. Hello to you, Leon. Adric, as always, let's hear it for the dancing Maggies. Maybe that's when you're supposed to put the clapping emojis in the chat. Adrian is here. He says, what's up, chat? Thank you for being here. Rocky Morcianu says, what's up to Adrian? He's ready for this conversation. Rocky wants to take up swing dancing. That's weird. When it's playing and you guys can't see me, I'm over here. Just dancing. It's Maggie's elevator music. Leon says, yes. Yep. Leon says 5 corporations literally hold up the stock market. It's actually, we may have to do this in my Patreon. It's actually all funnels to one company, interestingly enough. And there are lots of receipts for that. Chef Mike is here. Hi, Chef Mike. What is for lunch today? That's what I want to know. Adrian Hicks with the actual one company in the chat. He's seen the same documentary I have, which at some point we may go over in Patreon. That'd be good. Jake Green is here. Peace from Planet Vulcan. You can't see my hand. Chef Mike. Right. Chef Mike. Adric does set the table. He does. It's always going to be a good show when Adric's first, right? All right. So I'm going to prove to you by the end of this that you don't make very many choices at all. Free will is something that actually may not really be there, right? So especially when I get into the point about the presidential election and how you really don't have a choice. I can tell you right now who's going to be elected. You really don't have a choice, okay? It seems like we're given a lot of options, but in reality, those options all funnel back to the same couple things. Just like with media, it all funnels back to the same couple things, and those couple things funnel back to one thing. And so did you really actually make a decision? Did you really actually? right? Oh, Chef Mike, barbecue chicken, fried fish, mac and cheese, grilled corn. Oh, sounds delicious. Delicious. Okay. So, choice, right? Choice. That's what defines our freedom, right? Like that's autonomy. That's how we know that we have freedom. That's how we know we're an individual because we make our own personal choices. And it also defines progress. Like progress as a people, progress as an individual is all about the choices that we make. So, but how free are we actually? Right? Especially like in the West, they talk about freedom, 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 freest country on the planet, free this, free that, free democracy, free, 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 right? So, we're going to talk about the concept of choice, right? What its power is, the illusion of it, and how it impacts our daily lives. And I'm not going to leave you in a state of catastrophe either. So, we'll wrap it up in a good way at the end. There will be a nice bow on it. But somewhere in the middle, I'm proving to you that you really don't have the choices you think you do. Okay. So, the concept of choice, of free will, of those kind of things has been central in philosophy for an extraordinarily long time, like back to ancient times, right? Aristotle debated free will versus determinism. Is it that we're born as human beings and then by a series of the random choices that we make, we end up where we are? Or are things pretty much set and determined? An example of determinism is like for people who are Christian will say, God's got a plan for you, and God knew your path before you were born, and God's going to make sure that you end up where he wants you to end up. That's determinism. It's predetermined. That's determinism. Okay. So, as far back as Aristotle, and I'm sure before that, it's been debated about our choices and our free will and how much of it is determined. Okay. The whole question is, do human beings act independently, right? And we know that we don't. I mean, if you don't know that you don't, then you haven't, think biases, culture, your family. There's so many things that play into our lives that would affect our free will. Like it's a lot of the choices that we make have to do with where we were born, how we were born, who we were born to, how we were raised, who were we around, our peers, our schools, our the society, the culture, like everything plays into how we're going to make decisions and choose what we choose. Okay. We are essentially imprisoned, and I don't use that term lightly. We are essentially imprisoned into the societal structure, okay? Because it will tell us what our choices are. Okay? So like the Industrial Revolution happens, right? It brings on technological growth, but the Industrial Revolution brought our rigid caste system, okay? There was already a caste system, but it was like three things. There was three levels. But then when we tried to revamp it as a class system, it became this very rigid caste system because of the Industrial Revolution. Like our choices since the Industrial Revolution are more like instructions. You are this, and so you do this. You know, you are here, you go there. It's sort of like it tells us what our script is that we're supposed to read from birth, right? Here's what you're supposed to do. Here's what is expected of you. And then we as worker bees, right? Because that's the populace. The populace is the worker bees. We were taught to put quality into and admire laboring for long hours, right? That this is your personal responsibility to give to the country through your heavy labor. But at the end of the day, there's no other choice, right? If you don't work, if you don't have an income, then what are your choices? Somebody has to work for money. So even if a person's not working, that means they're living off of someone else. Even if it's the government, that's taxpayer money. Somebody has to labor. And then we're taught through our indoctrination at school and church and society to view that as a positive personal characteristic, to labor as hard as you can, to work your body, to work many, 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 many hours, overtime, be a workaholic, and then when you're not at work, work some more, work around the house, work for other people, work, 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 right? It didn't give you another choice. You can't really just sit back on your laurels. Somebody has to work. Even the wealthy, right? They live off the labor of people who are working. There is no choice. There is workers. There will be workers. That's why I say things like we're imprisoned by the system that we live in, because you're not given choices of what you can and cannot do. Okay. Today, we are presented with the illusion of choice a lot. And I say this often. It is a game, not a fun haha game. It is a game that is rigged because we're expected to do certain things. We are given a script, we're given marching orders, and we're funneled into that. And then we're placated through pandering and performative things and an illusion that we have any choice otherwise to make us feel like we are free, right? Just because somebody tells you that you live in the freest country, or this is the free democracy, free, 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 does not mean you are. How many choices do you actually have? Okay. Chef Mike says we actually live in a republic. Yes. It's a bit of a meritocracy, a bit of oligarchical. It's an elitist meritocracy republic. That's kind of my thinking on it. Hi, Rowan. Thank you for being here. For sure, for sure. Adrian says, shout out to Black jobs. Yeah, I mean, definitely. When we're talking about somebody must labor, when you're going down the caste system, it's like at the very top, those people live on the labor of others. And then as you go down, you have the hardest laborers, the people who labor the most, right? It's kind of like a teeter-totter. One has to balance the other. Right? So your labor is subsidizing the leisure of the wealthy. Okay. Hi, Cynical Optimist. Thank you for being here. Okay. So we know about the caste system when we know that the hardest labor subsidize the elite type of people at the top, right? And I use the term elite not as a like conspiracy theory thing, but we all know the uber wealthy. That's who I'm talking about. Okay. The people with like 27 generations of generational wealth, like that's who I'm talking about. Okay. So let's talk about limiting choices. Okay, limiting choices. Leon says with a splash of Fabian socialism. Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah, just a soupçon, just a little bit, right? So, and I'm giving references today for these stats. So if you guys need to look them up, if you want to get more information, if you want to double check what I said, please do. I have no problem being proven wrong or saying I'm taking things out of context. We can definitely discuss it. I'm human. Okay. So let's talk about your limiting choices. Number one, like we just talked about, poverty. Poverty limits choices, right? 12.5% of Americans under age 65 lacked health insurance in 2022. Okay. With lower income individuals disproportionately affected. Those in poverty often cannot afford necessary treatment, leading to deferred or denied care or avoided care. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. You see what I'm saying? And you're out there breaking your body doing all this heavy laboring, right? Limit your choice and manage your own health leads to poorer health outcomes. That source is a 2019 study by the American Journal of Public Health. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back. That on lacking health insurance was actually from the US Census Bureau. So sorry. So sorry. Another one, the 2019 study by the American Journal of Public Health found that 66.5, that's more than two-thirds, okay? Slightly more than two-thirds. 66.5% of bankruptcies in the United States were due to medical costs. So people have to go and declare bankruptcy because of medical costs. So it definitely affects your health and then your outcomes, your birth and death rates, all of that is affected by healthcare. And so when you have to labor and you don't have the choices towards healthcare, for getting it done because of money, then your choices are severely limited, right? And it disproportionately affects people who are lower income, but it affects a lot of people because maybe you can afford the insurance, but then because of how expensive the insurance is, you can't afford to go to the doctor because of copays and deductibles and all this kind of thing, right? Insurance doesn't really insure a lot. Okay. And a lot of insurance is just they're catastrophe insurances, they're like a worst case scenario insurance. Your insurance might say, well, if you're in the hospital more than 3 days, we'll pay 80%, right? Or you can go to the emergency department and we'll pay 50%. Well, that doesn't help when you're on week 3 of your sinus infection and you can't miss work, you know, for sure. Let's see. Hey, Snowman, thank you for being here. Hat King Empire says, sounds like a bunch of people want to take money from people who actually earned it to those who didn't. Definition on lazy. Basically, they can do it, but I can. So give to me instead. uh, that's almost exactly what I was saying. But thank you for being here. Nick Morrison is here, late but present. You are correct, sir. Adrian says, and it's my belief that we don't have socialized medicine because of a robust racial caste system. You're probably right on the nose with that, right? If everybody could be healthy, then how do we control? An illusion of choice is part of control. So when we talk about all of these things that play into the illusion of choice, you start getting the picture for control. Snowman says he can definitely identify with the health situation. Yeah, his wife and he can identify with the health situation for sure. Okay, another one where you think you have choice and you do not is educational opportunities. Okay. Low income students are 5 times less likely, 5 times less likely to graduate from high school. 5 times less likely to graduate from high school. That means like these 5 kids graduate and 25 other kids don't. Right? Okay. So 5 times less likely to graduate from high school compared to their higher income peers. And those who do graduate are significantly less likely to attend college. Okay. So of the 5 who do, they may or may not go to college. They're just less likely. Limited education reduces career opportunities and subsequently the range of life choices, right? Because now you're laboring hard. right? Because you don't have the pieces of paper that are required for the jobs that have less physical labor and more mind labor. Okay. So that is from the National Center for Education Statistics, the NCES. Okay. Another one where you don't have choices is housing. Okay. Now, we know it's gotten bad recently. So think about that. This is going to be these stats. It's worse now. Okay. I just don't have the most up to the minute thing. All right. 10.2 million renters were severely cost burdened in 2021, meaning they were spending more than 50% of their income on housing. Think about how much money you make in a month, okay? And then your rent is 50% of that. And then you're trying to pay utilities with the other 50%. Now, what can you do with the, $3.12 that's left that you have to buy groceries with? Right? Now you don't have choices. You can't choose to go to the movies or even go for a drive because you can't spend gas money, right? All of your money is going into housing. And again, we know that it's gotten worse recently. So it's even worse than that now, right? Many individuals living in poverty have fewer housing options, even to try to find something that's more rent controlled, right? And because they're low income, that automatically makes them have a low credit rating. So this is where we get into the situation where you go to try to buy a house, right? Because the mortgage payment's going to be $700. Okay, we'll say 700. I don't know where you live. I'm going to assume it's not super expensive. Okay. So you want to buy the house, the mortgage is $700 and your rent is $1,400. And then the bank will tell you based on your credit score, you can't afford $700 a month while you're already paying $1,400 a month for rent. So it locks into that system, right? So when there's fewer housing options for which you can afford, it forces people into unsafe situations, into overcrowded conditions, multiple family members moving in together to try to consolidate resources. And when you have multiple people living in a house, how many choices do you have? Can you choose what to watch on TV? Can you choose when to use the restroom? You're having to work around a lot of people. So even the housing insecurity limits your housing choices, but it also limits your day-to-day choices because of where you're living. If you're living in an unsafe condition, can you go outside and take a walk anytime you want? You're limiting all of your choices of your day-to-day. Okay. Snowman says you're speaking to the latter part of the wife and I's run in North Carolina. Yeah, when you first got diagnosed with cancer. Yep. Okay, next one. Food insecurity. 34 million people in the US, including 9 million children, experienced food insecurity in 2021. When people are food insecure, they cannot choose the type of food that they eat, right? What do they say? Beggars can't be choosers, right? Leading to a reliance on cheaper, less nutritional options. This is why you will see a lot of, okay, so I work with a lot of indigent and homeless population people. Now, that's not the entirety of my cases. I see everybody. There are families with millions of dollars that I see, but a vast majority of who I tend to gravitate towards are people who are indigent. Okay. And what you will see a lot of times is you will have people who are indigent who do a lot of walking, right? Because they don't have a car, they can't afford the bus, they're definitely not getting a taxi or an Uber. But they are food insecure, and so they are reliant on the food that they're given. And a lot of people who are indigent are overweight. And it's not from overeating, it is from nutritional deficiencies. Okay. And it creates, your body goes into this mode where it holds on to carbohydrates and sugars. So a lot of diabetes, right? it holds on to carbohydrates and sugars because it thinks that you are in a famine. And then a lot of the food that they are given are really high in carbohydrates because it's filling. And it's hard in some of these kitchens and stuff to have like fresh produce, fresh meats, things like that. So it's a lot of carbs, a lot of sauces, and if they are going to give you veggies, it's bagged salad. And iceberg lettuce doesn't have any, sorry, there's a little fly in here. Um, it doesn't have nutritional value. Okay. So this is why people who are indigent, people who are food insecure, tend to be overweight, appear overweight, and end up with diabetes. But it's not it's not because they're sitting around eating all the time. It's food insecurity. Okay, it's nutritional deficiencies. Okay. So they don't have choices for healthy dietary choices. And in this day and age, we make the joke like eggs cost $9 a dozen. So even just, average people, the grocery bill has become astronomical. And so we have to get very choosy at the grocery store about what we can make. And we know what's filling, right? And produce always costs more than a bag of dried spaghetti or a bag of beans, so our nutritional quality is going down because we can't make those same decisions because of the price at the grocery store. Rowan says this is why there's a lot of Dollar Trees and Family Dollars in the hood. The processed foods in abundance and lack of whole foods is crazy. Same with school lunches. Yes. Yeah, and the preservatives that are in processed foods, right? Those aren't great for you either, but if you're hungry, you're gonna eat, okay? And I don't know if you guys have heard me say this story about the trees, but and I don't have the resource right in front of me, so if somebody knows it right off the top of their head, put it in there, but when the government was making cities, and they were talking about, like, planting trees, around in the city. They planted all male trees, and they've continued to do this over time because they didn't want free food because that hurts the grocer. Okay. So this is why too the sharp increase in allergies in modern times, and it's because there's a ton of pollen in the air from all these male trees that don't have female trees to grab the pollen out of the air, and which is why we don't have fruit trees in cities where there are a lot of indigent people because it hurts the grocer if somebody can just pick an apple off a tree as they're walking down the street. Okay. There's always a plasma center right next to them. You know what? You're making me think because there's a Dollar Tree over there. There's a plasma center over there. There's a Dollar General there. You're making me think, right? Rowan says all male trees around, right? Yeah. Yeah. In cities for sure. And then as you get into highways and things like that, they spray all the vegetation. So when you want to, like if you wanted to just go find wild food, which there's wild food everywhere, guys. You can find onions, garlic, asparagus, blackberry, strawberry. You can find all kinds of things wild. But the problem is, if you're going to do that, you have to get so far away from highways because they spray such terrible chemicals. And of course, it gets in the air. And so even though you can think, oh, well, they only spray this, 20-foot region, it gets in the air. So you have to go way out. And so, of course, if you live in the city, there is no going way out to try to find wild, fresh food. This is how humans ate, up until the Industrial Revolution. And they had to put like the grocer in where the worker village, that's when grocers started, that's the market, So, Leon says, I used to get plasma all the time until I got a few tattoos. Oh, you can't do it with tattoos? Huh. Okay, Rowan's saying DaVita, Resinus, and Min clinics. Oh, I see what you're saying, like acute clinics, right, but not an actual hospital. Yeah, you're probably right. Right, right. Adrian says, meanwhile, affluent neighborhoods have Whole Foods, traditional banks, sit down restaurants, and manicured green spaces. And don't forget the neighborhood gardens that are allowed in affluent neighborhoods that are not allowed in other neighborhoods. They're allowed there, right? The HOA says, yay, let's do it. All right. Economic mobility. This is another one. A child born into poverty in the US has only about a 7.5 chance of moving to the top income quintile as an adult. Okay. Poverty restricts long term choices regarding education, career, location, which makes breaking the cycle of poverty very, very difficult. This is what I'm saying. You are born, this is why I call it a caste system and not a class system, because you're born into it and it's hard to get out of it, right? Either way, because people will say, oh, well, you can move down. Not so much, because the higher up, the more protection mechanisms and safety nets there are to pull you back into the caste system you're supposed to be in, right? Under the Veil started about white women's veil of protection. Okay. There are more safety nets, there are safety mechanisms. The lower down the caste system you go, the more and more and more and more of those safety nets are gone. Okay. If you think somebody at the top echelon can fall all the way down, you haven't been paying attention. They can't, they won't, they never will. And the upper echelon will never let it happen. Okay. All right. So economic mobility, moving up in that system, you only have a 7.5 chance if you're born into poverty. 7.5. That's 7 out of 100. That ain't great, right? So even if I'm going to make all these choices, I'm going to do all these things, I'm going to make all these moves, and I'm going to make it, your choices are more determined than you think they are, right? Adrian says the good old boy system. It is. It absolutely is. Okay, employment constraints. People in poverty often work multiple jobs to make ends meet, right? So we talked about that. Labor, 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 labor. 77% of low-income workers in the US have no paid sick leave. 77% of low income. I'm not even saying poverty level, right? Because there's, working poor. There are lots of homeless people who have jobs, by the way. That whole get a job thing, there's lots of homeless people with a job. Okay. 77% of low income workers in the US have no paid sick leave. This forces individuals to prioritize immediate survival over long term career development or personal well being. It's just go to work. Go to work, make it through work, labor at work, get home, try to have something to eat, go to sleep. Okay. Patch up the holes in your work pants, wear your work shirt until it is threadbare and transparent. Just get through the day. How can you think about other things when that's all you have to do, right? That's all you can think about. So they end up stuck in low-paying jobs with no room for advancement, limiting economic choices. That's from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Oh, I forgot the economic mobility one. That is from the Pew Charitable Trusts. Okay. So, and food insecurity was from the USDA. Housing insecurity was from Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies. I keep forgetting to tell you guys the references, and I'm sorry for that. Rocky says, and the jobs seem to be limited to public transportation routes. Oh, I can see that. It's like to make the amount of money to actually live on is like the warehouse jobs, the labor jobs, the factory, They're more dangerous, there's more physical labor, there's lots of overtime, you know what I mean? It's, and not a lot of room for advancement, right? There's a lot of frontline workers and very little room at the top for you. Leon says poverty is created for young men to go to the military. That's pretty much the only way for most poor men. Yeah, I mean, it's marketed that way, right? Like free college and free room and board and paid this and paid that and a bonus. You get a $25,000 bonus. And if you live in poverty and live with your family and somebody says $25,000 bonus and free healthcare, come on. You're going to take the bonus, you're going to help your family a little bit, and you're going to go get the free healthcare, the free training, the free college, and not necessarily think about what you have to do in exchange for that, right? Where's the choice? Where's the choice? Starve to death, watch your family starve to death, never have any options, or here's a gun, go get shot at. Okay. Next one is mental health. Okay. People living in poverty are 2 to 3 times more likely, 2 to 3 times more likely to experience mental health disorders like depression and anxiety, as you can understand, right? Hopefully everybody can understand that. You have lack of choices. You're funneled into systems that rely on your labor, whether it's the factory or it's the prison or it's the military. You are funneled, right? So 2 to 3 times more likely to experience mental health disorders like depression and anxiety. Poverty-related stress reduces the ability to make thoughtful decisions, and they often lack access to mental health resources that could help them regain a sense of control over their lives. So he was talking about, in the neighborhood, poorer neighborhoods, let's say, there are specific things you will see there and specific things you won't. How many therapists' office do we see in low-income neighborhoods? We don't really, we don't really see that. Now, the office I work at, we're right smack dab in the middle of it, but it's government funded. Okay. So you're not gonna have an individual therapist just gonna go put up their shingle. You know what I mean? So that comes from the World Health Organization. Okay. Stress related disorders are like heart disease. So we've talked about diabetes and heart disease. Okay. Those happen from limited choices and lower income. That's where it comes from. Okay. So one of the most visible examples of limited choice in our modern society is the two-party political system in the United States. That is like the most out there example of limited choice. And it sounds like a choice. Oh, it's two-party. There's two candidates. You choose between one or the other. You don't. You don't. Now, I'm going to prove this to you. Okay. This is where I said I was going to prove some stuff to you. Okay. Every 4 years, the voters are told to pick between the two candidates. Now, for bonus points, somebody put in the chat, how many candidates do you think are running for president in this upcoming election? How many do you think it is? Most people will tell you it's two. Even if they know there's others, they will tell you it's two. And then they'll do things like, well, but you can't throw away your vote and you can't do this and you can't do that, and blah, 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 blah. So, right. Mm. Leon got the bonus points first, right? So tell me, of those of you who understand that there's multiple candidates running, besides the Democrat and the Republican candidates, who's your favorite other candidate and why? You can even look it up real quick. Do it while this plays. Heck, who cares? And replay gang, you got plenty of time. Think about Who's your favorite not Democrat or Republican? Let me know who that is and why are they the third choice? Let's say. Why would you put them in the third spot? Okay. Hi, Fry. Thanks for being here. Okay. So every 4 years, we're told to pick between two candidates, right? And these people have two different faces, both literally and figuratively, right? Like they're two different people. They present themselves, right, in a certain way, but they both represent corporate interests, right? Behind the scenes. This is not a conspiracy theory. This stuff is out there everywhere, right? This is not tinfoil hat kind of stuff. We all know this. Lobbying, right? We know about the lobbyists, right? The lobbyists control how our representatives, as they should be, how they vote and move, right? Different entities have lobbyists, and these lobbyists go to, Congress, or they go to the president's office, they go these places and they make the case for, hey, this upcoming thing is coming up, or this bill is going to be presented. This is how it would work in our best interest. This is what we would like for you to do. This is what we think you should do, which all of that sounds fine. Hey, we have a group and here's our person and they're going to talk and they're going to say, right? That's okay. Doesn't seem like a terrible thing until you understand that politicking costs a lot of money. And where people get money from is not from individual donors. That's not where the vast amount of money comes from. It comes from the lobbyists. So here, this lobbyist is handing you $5 million and then saying, we'd really like you to vote yes. Now, they're not tied. You don't have to, this is free money. I'm not saying, why does it sound like the mafia all of a sudden? I'm not saying you got to vote a certain way. Come on now. Come on. So either side is going to work towards the richest corporations, because the richest corporations can afford the most lobbying and the most donations, right? And they want to do what's in their best interest. Also, because politicking costs a lot of money, the political system is filled with people who are on the upper end of our caste system, because you have to have wealth to run for office. Okay. Maybe not your local county commissioner, your little town mayor, those kind of things. Although you can't afford to live on a mayor's salary, you still got to have a full-time job. I'm talking about, more federal, more even state representative stuff like that. You have to have some money. So then our representatives come from money and serve corporations. Okay. I gotta stop the comments for a second because you guys are rolling in with this stuff. Your third person. Okay. So Republicans and Democrats rely heavily on funding from big corporations, limiting policies they can realistically pursue. It's sort of like when they talk about, well, we need to tax the wealthy. Okay, the people who are making the decisions on our tax brackets are wealthy people. Are they going to be like, yes, you should tax me at 75%? They're the ones who decided we don't tax the wealthy. It used to be that the more money you made, the higher percentage of taxes that you paid. And once a person reached $1 billion, they were taxed at 90% of all new income was taxed at 90%. All of that got pushed out. So you think they're going to bring that back, right? This is why we have so many billionaires now. Okay. Many people feel like voting for the lesser of two evils rather than for a representation of their values, right? And how many times are we told, well, it's the lesser of two evils. We got the lesser of two evils. Who wants to, is that okay? Are you guys okay with that? The lesser of two evils? No. Why are my choices two evil people? No, just no, that's not okay. How is that a choice? Do you want this demon over here or this devil right here? How is that a choice? I'm getting hell no matter what. That's not a choice, right? And they know this, right? That's why it's called an illusion of choice. Do you want this government backing that's, dressed up this way, or do you want this government and corporate backing that's dressed up this way? It's the same thing. The demon or the devil, it's both hell. It's the same thing. Okay. Now I got to look at some choices people have. Boop, boop. Okay. Leon says Jill Stein, Cornel West, Trump, Harris, I forgot. Jasmine Sherman. I think that's all five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's all five. Jill Stein, Cornel West, Trump, Harris, and Jasmine Sherman. I think that's all five. Okay. Fry says Green Party, so that would be Jill Stein. Okay. Leon says Cornel West because they have a little momentum to do or force the Democrats to do a little more, even though Cornel. See, stop with the he won't win. We're going to talk about that, right? Rowan says, I really liked Bernie Sanders. I did too until, yeah. After him, Jill Stein. He says, but there's zero money behind anybody who actually wants to help, right? Like the corporate backing. You know what I'm saying? I saw something the other day that said, well, Jill Stein only ever does things every 4 years when she goes to run. I'm like, well, tell me you've never looked up Jill Stein. She's busy incessantly going places, giving lectures, volunteering to do things. She's Green Party. They go out and do cleanups. They clean up beaches and parks, and she's out there doing the actual physical work. She got arrested for protesting. Okay, like multiple times she's been arrested for protesting, by the way. Last year, I think, was the last time, 2023, I think. I think that was the last time she got arrested, unless she's been arrested since for protesting. So, Fry's talking about APAC. Yeah. Rocky Morciano says, I just looked up Jill Stein and I'd vote for her. I'm talking about Bernie Sanders a little bit. Spainman says, just imagine if all 5 candidates could debate on one stage, the two-party system would dissolve overnight. It wouldn't because of the Electoral College, but we're going to talk about that. Spainman says Chase Oliver is running for the Libertarians. Oh, so that's the 6th. I don't even know anything about him. That is my bad. Adric says, how is it not only 2 candidates if others aren't on all 50 states ballots? Guess what? Jasmine Sherman and Jill Stein, last I heard, are on all 50 states. Do you guys even know who Jasmine Sherman is? So, next question is, of the 6 candidates, and I don't know about Chase Oliver, I'm going to make an assumption if he's running on the Libertarians, but of all the candidates, who or how many are in favor of reparations? So 6 people, okay? 6 people. How many are in favor of reparations for American descendants of slavery? And the reason I bring this up is because there's usually two talking points that tend to throw votes. Okay, so one is abortion, and we've debated that upside down and backwards in the political system. And the second one is reparations to American descendants of slavery. So I'm asking, of the 6, how many do you think are in favor of reparations to American descendants of slavery? Okay. All right. So let me back up a little bit. 2-party political system, right? So lesser of 2 evils, right? It's because we are in a winner takes all system. And most people don't realize this winner takes all system. So I'm going to explain it to you. And the Electoral College is part of that. Leon, stop. Spainman says he's the 5th, according to New York Times. Well, we got Trump, Harris, Jill Stein, Cornel West. Maybe who am I missing, guys? And Jasmine Sherman. I'm not going to be able to keep track of all these people. Jill Stein, Cornel West, Trump, Harris, Jasmine Sherman, and the Libertarian guy. So that should be 6. That should be 6. Okay, so Cynical says 2. Rocky says none. Chef says 1. Leon says 3. Spain Man says 1. It is 3 of the 6. Now, this illusion of two-party system, guess how many of the two evils that we have to choose from? Oh, sorry, I set off the balloons from the peace side, I think. Well, maybe it wasn't. Anyway, out of the 2, how many of them are in favor of reparations? You don't have to put it in the chat because it's 0, right? And again, this is a big ticket thing, right? Just like abortion, it's a big ticket thing, but the 3 candidates who are in favor of reparations aren't even one of the 2 that we get to choose from, right? So if that is an issue that is tied heavily into your vote, where's your choice? Where did your choice go, right? And in case you guys want to know, it's Cornel West, Jasmine Sherman, and Jill Stein are the 3 that are in favor of and have a plan for paying reparations for American descendant slavery. And it is most definitely not passing the hat around to white people in their neighborhood who all say, well, where's that money going to come from? I'm not going to pay it. And then they don't even question when there's lots of money for like Israel and Ukraine. They're just like, wow, we just had money in our pockets. Okay. So we are on a winner takes all. Spainman, you're correct. Big fat goose egg. Harris nor Trump are in favor of reparations. They just want to battle it out about abortion. So let's talk about that system because a lot of people don't understand the winner takes all system. So we're going to go through it. And I'm really, really going to rely heavily on my notes so that I say this clearly. You guys know I keep notes in front of me to keep me on track. Okay. Whichever candidate wins the majority of the popular vote in a state gets all of its electoral votes. Okay. So just think about like during the election, right? And they're counting votes and they're counting votes and they're counting votes. And then they're like, oh, Omaha is blue, right? And then all of a sudden, it's blue. Okay. That's number 1, right? So if 50.2% of people voted blue for our little 2, you only get 2 choices for corporate, shells. And 49.8% of people voted red, then if the state is blue, all of the people who voted red, then their vote doesn't count anymore. Done. Then there's a specific number of electoral votes per state based on population. I don't have it right in front of me, but for the country, it's 200. It's 538. It's 538 electoral votes that come from the whole country. So the president is elected by the electoral college. Our votes inform the electoral votes. You see what I'm saying? This is why, like, a president could overarchingly get all of the popular vote and still not become president. Okay? Because if your state turns a different color than who you voted for, then your votes are null now. And the state votes for that. If the state is red, then the state votes for the red candidate. Okay. That's a winner takes all kind of system, right? So, for example, okay, Well, let me back up for a second. That structure favors the two-party system, okay? A third-party candidate could win a lot of the popular vote in a state, but it would be very difficult for them to get enough votes to get the electoral votes in that state. So you could have a third party candidate who could get overarchingly a lot of the popular vote. They could get the same amount as the person who's actually elected president and still not win the presidency because you have to get the majority in the state to get the state's votes. Okay. Hopefully, you guys are with me. So, if a third party candidate gets 20% of the vote in a state, they get zero electoral votes, right? Even though 20% of those people chose them. This disincentivizes people from voting third party because they're like, my vote is wasted. But honestly, we can feel like that if we live in a state that's very entrenched in a color that is not the way we vote. My vote gets thrown in the garbage every single time. So I'm disincentivized every time, right? Rocky says, when I mention the electoral college to those I tell I don't vote, their brains scramble because they think it's all popular, and it's absolutely not. Spainman says, by the way, I understand the electoral college thing. I guess what I was trying to say is that we'd see a greater revolt against the two-party system. But yes, yeah, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying, and I'm actually going to get into that. Yes, thank you for that. Okay, so there's a 270 electoral vote threshold, right? So it's 538 electoral votes come from the country. To be the president, you have to get 270 electoral votes. This is why swing states are important, right? Because the states that are entrenched in their either red or blue, the candidate is already expecting those electoral votes, and they're trying to get the swing states' electoral votes to ensure they can get to that 270 mark of electoral votes from the states. Okay. So, to become president, a candidate must win a majority of the 538 electoral votes, meaning they need the 270 minimum, right? Given the entrenched power of the two major parties, third party candidates are highly unlikely to reach that threshold. Even if they manage to win a state or two, even if they manage to get the popular vote, it's practically impossible for them to gather enough electoral votes nationwide. Okay. This is where I'm going to interject here that the electoral votes aren't just electronic. They aren't automatic. There is a state representative that is behind each of those votes, right? So an electorate could even still vote their electoral vote different than the way that the state's popular vote came out. So those state representatives are chosen by whoever has the most power when they're refiguring who gets, who's going to be the representative, right? So they're either Democrats or Republicans. Okay. And our system always favors Republicans. They've put this in computer programs to figure out how do we even redistrict things for these electoral votes to make it a 50-50. And it's very, very, very difficult to do. For some reason, it always comes out a little slightly in favor of Republicans. I don't get why that happens, but the electorate can still vote. That representative can still vote the way they want to vote, regardless of what their state said. Now, does that happen very often? No, but it has happened and it can happen. Okay. But since they're Republicans and Democrats, they work for, the Republicans and the Democrats. They're not going to vote for a third party ever, ever. It's going to be one of the two. Okay. So it's nearly impossible for them to get enough electoral votes nationwide. This is why you hear people say, abolish the electoral college, because it literally takes away our choice. We have two corporate shells who run, and we're told that they're both evil. Again, one is a demon, one is a devil, and all you get is hell. And you vote for one of them and pick a choice. Well, that's not a choice. That's not a choice at all, right? Leon says, yes, that's actually why Democrats worry about other parties. Most Republicans will just vote conservatively versus liberal. Hi, usual business. Thank you for being here. Yeah. So, all right. Then we have what is called the spoiler effect. Have you guys heard about this before? All right. Because of the electoral college's winner takes all, right? Winner gets the state. Whoever gets the popular vote in the state takes the state, and everybody else's vote goes in file 13, which is the trash can, right? So because of the winner takes all system, third party candidates are often viewed as spoilers. You guys may have heard this before. Voters may fear that voting for a third party candidate could lead to their least preferred major political party candidate winning, right? Like, how often do we hear this? Well, you gotta vote. Oh gosh, if you vote Cornel West, then that takes a vote away from Kamala, right? And then Trump's gonna win, and then it's gonna be hell on earth. And you hear these things. They say you're wasting your vote, you're throwing away your vote. People will talk about how third party candidates are, spoilers, or I heard Jill Stein get referenced as a Russian bot. I'm like, are you new here? Jill Stein's been around for a long time, right? Green Party's been around for a very long time, right? So in the 2000 election, Ralph Nader, who was a third party candidate, was blamed for drawing votes away from Democrat Al Gore. Now, Ralph Nader almost got elected a few times. He got real close. Okay. Because he even, if I'm remembering correctly, won a state or two on occasion. Okay. So supposedly drew votes away from Al Gore, which contributed to George W.'s victory. So it kind of reinforces the idea that voters must choose between the two main candidates. You're essentially not voting your values. You're not voting for the person who represents your values. You're voting against somebody who you think is terrible or worser. They're the worser ones. So I don't want them. So I'm going to vote for the other person, right? How is that a choice? Again, how is it a choice? Right? Oh, Rocky says, what are you drinking? Water. Water. Especially when I have to talk a lot, because I don't talk a ton anyway. So when I'm doing a live and I'm talking a lot, it's water. Rocky says, I remember old Ralph, the weird hat of his. Yeah. Rocky says, yeah, especially about the Kamala thing. And Leon says, yeah, George Bush lost the popular vote, right? But he won the electoral. Okay. So the popular vote means nothing because half of the votes get thrown away. Okay. So then we have the state by state focus. So the Electoral College forces presidential campaigns to focus on swing states, like I said, right? We're already counting on your votes because you are staunchly blue or you are staunchly red. We don't have time to go to all 50 states. So we're going to focus on the swing states, right? Where the outcome is uncertain, rather than all voters nationwide. So this marginalizes people, right? Like, you're never going to come to my state. You're never going to focus on my state. You're never going to earn my vote in my state because you're just expecting the state's going to come a specific way. You're expecting this. And so what do you got to do for me? Nothing, right? It also marginalizes third-party candidates who could have widespread support around the country, but they can't concentrate their efforts in battleground states because they're so busy raising the millions and millions of dollars it costs. You have to pay to get put on the ballot. You have to have all these signatures. You have to pay a bunch of money. I think it's in some places $500,000 plus a certain amount of signatures to get put on the ballot. Right? This is what I'm saying. This is a wealthy man's game. Okay. So they struggle to get visibility and momentum. You start getting that the more times you run for president, right? Jill Stein's a good example of that. She's run for president a few times. And so people are starting to hear about her in the mainstream, but it's taken like 16 years. Okay, institutional barriers. The two major parties have established control over the electoral process. That's what I was talking about. They choose the electoral representatives, right? They district the area for how many votes, right? They decide all of this stuff. So it makes it difficult for a third party candidate to even get in the ballot, right? The presidential debates are typically restricted to candidates who are polling above a certain threshold. So you've got to spend all this time trying to get your name out there, trying to get people involved, trying to get people your message, all this kind of stuff. And to even get on the debate, everybody's got to know you. Like everybody's got to know you enough for you to poll at a certain level when they haven't even heard of you yet. Right? Like think about how close we are to the vote. And today, maybe the first time somebody's heard, that's the first time I heard of that libertarian candidate, and that's libertarian. Okay. I don't know what Jasmine Sherman is. I think independent of some sort. Okay. All right. So the third party candidates rarely meet all of this criteria to be at the debates, right? That's what we were talking about. Okay. It also costs a lot of money to debate. Well, the Republicans pay for the Republican candidate to debate. The Democrats pay for the Democrat candidate to debate. Who would be paying for these other candidates to debate? They got to raise that money themselves. The libertarians don't have that kind of money. The Green Party doesn't have that kind of money. They have some money because people donate, but independents don't have that kind of money, right? So structurally, it is set up to keep third parties out. It is set up to gatekeep the whole thing. The Electoral College, by favoring the two-party system, ensures that a third-party candidate remains symbolic. Now, does that tell you? You have a choice if it is symbolic, and then the two choices that you do have are bought and paid for by corporate lobbies, right? Where is your choice? Okay. We are funneled into picking between these two people, and there's inevitability, right? What do our votes even mean? And I'm not telling you guys not to vote. I'm just saying know how voting works when you vote. Okay. Social media trends, peer pressure, ideas about success and religion, and all of those kind of things also on top of all of this add into, are you making decisions? Are these choices that you have? Because we are affected, not just electoral. I know I went off on that a little bit. That was pretty deep, but overarchingly choices, right? We have social media dictating to us. We have trends telling us what to do. We have peer pressure telling us what to do. We're raised with ideas about what success is. We have religion telling us how we're supposed to be. We have our societal caste system telling us how we are and how we're supposed to be. We have all these cultural descriptions that are foisted upon us that tell us who we are and how we're supposed to be. So as you go through the day, are you making a choice? Are you making a decision? Or are you just meeting expectations? So it's an illusion. You're just doing what you were expected to do, what everybody expected you to do. That's what you're doing. Okay. There's a determinist who, when asked about spontaneity, right, and was like, if everything is determinist, then what if I decide to go? I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson that asked him if, what if I go? I don't remember exactly what he said, but like, what if I just decide right now to go stand on my head in the middle of the street? He said, well, then all that says is that you're the type of person that would do that and that you've always been that type of person. And so you'll continue to do those type of things because it's determined that's who you are. And it's like, oh, well, shoot. That's why I don't give in to determinism. It sounds very nihilistic. All right. So, oh, Adrian says Jasmine Sherman is unaffiliated. Man, she doesn't have any corporate backing whatsoever. Yeah, Rowan says you have to have money to pay your way into access. It is a rich man's game. That's what I say. Yeah. Rowan says symbolic of what? Antebellum, racist, bygone era. Really grinds my gears. Yes. Hello. Prince Mugo says, is there a subject you don't cover? Yes, there is. And I've said many times the subject I don't cover. So yeah, actually there's probably two that I wouldn't cover. Adrian says, and we have political parties telling us what is and isn't a waste of time as far as voting third party. You may have already covered this, but I stepped away for a moment. Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't say it specifically like that. I'm saying you are correct that they are bought and paid for by the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And so, and then every representative, everybody who's voted in under that party has a duty to their party to shame you and blame you and do all these kind of things to force you into those two votes, right? Oh, Rowan says she covers it all, bro. It's the best for my ADHD autistic brain. You know, I'm a bit neurodivergent myself, so and it definitely runs in the family. Adric says, so the Green Party won a court case to be on the Nevada ballot. I think so. I think you guys are gonna have to check because when you ask me stuff off the top of my head, I always second guess myself. But I thought I had heard that she was on all 50 states. Now, regardless of whether she is or isn't, and I'll go into this more in when I'm talking about voting third party. You can write in anybody for anything. Their name does not have to be there for you to click it. You can write in anybody's name for anything when you vote. You can do write-ins. There's never a time where a write-in is not allowed when it's voting for people. You know, there's certain things when it's like yes or no. You can't write in about that. But when you're voting for people, you can write in anybody you want. Okay? Daffy Duck, if you want. The only reason I say that is because I know one time my grandfather voted Daffy Duck for president because he didn't want to do the lesser of two evils. All right. Rowan says, can you explain for everybody the difference between the quality of choice, specifically an informed choice versus a coerced choice, and the difference between the two? I would say the coerced choice is like the illusion of choice. So that would be like when I talk about you're funneled into a predetermined choice, right? As a big example, right? Like your state is blue. So your vote gets thrown away. But you're funneled into this thinking that you have a choice, but they've already predetermined the outcome. Or they're like coercing, they're strong arming, they're shaming you into a specific choice because there is a desired outcome that they want. So this is where people funnel you into a determined answer. There is no choice. You pretend to make a choice. You go and you vote and you push the buttons and you do the thing and you're like, I made a choice. And then the outcome is exactly how they wanted it to be, right? An informed choice may or may not end up being the same. You all are being informed about things that you may or may not have heard about before today, right? But does not change the fact that this is the system that we're in. Everything gets funneled a certain way. But when we're making a choice, having all the information will make us make choices differently in the future. Okay. Hopefully that was the direction you wanted me to go with that, Rowan, or let me know if there was a different way. Okay. Okay. Adrian says no, she didn't get on Nevada. So that's on me. That might have been wishful thinking that I heard. Leon says, wow, just finished reading her website. She's a real socialist, progressive, true, pure leftist. Yeah, a lot of people like her. A lot of people. Spain man's voting for Pedro. um, oh, I guess I assumed it was Jill Stein Leon was talking about. Um, Rowan says, thank you kindly, especially for using the term shaming into the choice already predetermined. I argue this point a lot and it gets lost on people that I'm trying to express this to. Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, guys. It is not all 1984, institutional control out here. Okay. There are things that have been done that we can continue to do, other things that we can think about. If you guys have heard me talk about transcendentalism, this was the word transcendence and things like that is kind of utilized, incorporated into like woo-woo spirituality talk, but this was an actual movement, right? In the 19th century in the United States. This is where it started, transcendentalism. It was championed by Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau. Ralph Waldo Emerson had a place on one of his properties. It was actually a stop on the Underground Railroad. And I say that to say because transcendentalists believed in individualism, self-reliance, and the biggest thing, personal freedom. It was called transcendentalism because it was about rising above or going beyond your state, right? So we cannot have a class system. We cannot have a caste system. They believe that everyone needs as much freedom as they possibly can to reach their full potential. And for each person, that's going to look different. And so then we have a social obligation to provide that amount of freedom to our fellow man. Okay. Now, one of the reasons why Ralph Waldo Emerson had a stop on one of his properties, it was the Underground Railroad, is because they spoke out a lot against the enslavement of people, of slavery, of, people who were enslaved, Black people who were enslaved. So many people, there's so much coming out about whether people were indigenous and some people were brought in from Africa. And so now you can't even say, people who were trafficked from Africa because some were trafficked domestically, so there were Black people who were trafficked and enslaved. Okay. So these people have no freedom. And so the transcendentalists, based on their beliefs, were very outspoken about personal freedom and about being able to transcend and go beyond or rise above whatever to be able to reach your full potential. And this movement did gain a lot of traction, but it was up against the Freemasons and it was up against the abolitionists. And when it comes to kind of who won out, that was the abolitionists. Now, the transcendentalists said the abolitions that's not near good enough, right? Because they were more like, well, let them go free and then we'll oppress them in different ways. Whereas transcendentalists was like, each individual human being needs as much freedom as possible, and we all owe it to each other to give each other that, right? Transcendentalism believed that society as a whole eventually becomes evil because society forces people into conformity that take more of your freedom, takes more of your choice, gives you marching orders for what you should do. True choice and freedom come from looking inward, trusting your instincts, figuring out what you need to do to rise above or go beyond to reach your full potential, rather than what society or other people expect from you, right? Now, transcendentalism, while they kind of lost out to the abolition movement, they were then hijacked by feminism. Feminism came along and kind of picked and chose, kind of did a cafeteria plan and picked a bunch of stuff off of that tree And so then when the transcendentalists were trying to talk about what they were trying to talk about, the feminists were like, yeah, we did that. Yeah, yeah, that's us. So it sort of petered out. But just like any movement, you can pick up the mantle anytime you want. You can pick up that torch and keep it going. Me personally, that's my philosophy in life. I follow transcendentalism. That is my personal philosophy. Okay, so that's something I'm about in the way I make decisions, is that each individual person needs to be as free as they possibly can be to reach their potential. We owe that to ourselves and to other people. Um, oh, Leon was talking about Jasmine Sherman. Okay. Adrian says, speaking of shaming, I had an elected Democrat official tell me that my dead mother didn't love me because I have criticism for Kamala. Yeah, there's a lot of shaming. Yep. Rowan says, transcendentalism shouts to Earth, Wind, and Fire for trying to express this idea through song for the longest. It was lost on my folks because of the woo-woo around the term, right? Like, so much of it was just sort of people were picking fruit off of that tree. Now, the people who talk transcendentalism, even in metaphysics, are talking about transcending, but they're talking more about ascending than transcending. So, words matter, right? But transcendentalism it's an option, guys. It can be your own. It's my personal philosophy, so it becomes my political party. That's how I vote. You know what I mean? So who's to say that it can't come back? And who's to say that it can't gain traction, especially in this day and age? Okay. So we have that, right? As some options for thought, not necessarily action. I'm talking about what we think, right? Now, since I talked a lot about third party voting, I'm going to talk about a little bit about, being planful. Okay. These are the positive things that can happen if you vote third party, right? Because you'll have so many people telling you that's a Russian bot and you're throwing away your vote, and a vote for this person, or if you don't vote for this person, you're essentially voting for this. Like, there's all the shame and blame and guilt and all the BS tactics that go on, right? But here's what can happen if you vote third party. We know it's almost impossible for them to get actually elected, okay? Unless we can get 51% of the country to, 51% of each individual state to vote for the person, which may or may not happen at some point in our lifetime. Who knows? But third party voting expresses dissatisfaction, right? So if you vote for third party candidate, you're sending a clear message to the two major political parties that their platforms, policies, and candidates are not addressing your concerns. They are not for you, right? Now think about the two biggies that I brought up. Abortion's always a big debated topic, and reparations for descendants of slavery is always a big debate topic. So, if the two evils if their platforms, policies, or their particular candidates don't address your concerns, this is called protest voting. And it has worked throughout history in politics when people protest vote. Okay. Did you guys ever see that movie? The guy's name was Monty's Millions. Is that what it was called? He was like this B-league baseball player, but he had to spend a certain amount of money, and he finally figured out that the biggest waste of money was to run for office. But if he won office, he'd actually get a wage, and he had to waste so much money so he could gain so much money. I don't know. It was the thing. So the biggest waste of money was running for political office, but he didn't want people to actually vote for him. And so his political campaign was none of the above. That is a protest vote. Yes, Richard Pryor. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. So protest voting signals a demand for change and new ideas, right? If a third party candidate garners substantial portion of the vote, it forces the major parties to pay attention to issues they've been ignoring, right? It forces change. Protest votes forces people to look at, oh gosh, I've been pandering to the wrong ideas. You know what I mean? I need to do some more performative things about these other things that they're interested in, right? Brewster's Millions. Thank you. That was it. That was a cute movie. Okay. It encourages future viability. So the more votes a third party candidate or party receives, the more legitimacy and visibility they gain. So if you like a candidate, and I just told you they have to run multiple times to be seen around the country, how much more seen would they be if they got so much of the popular vote that the news is talking about them, right? That's free publicity for your candidate, right? They get better media coverage, increased funding, ding, 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 and greater ballot access in future elections. They start to meet more and more of that criteria to get closer to being automatically put on ballots, to get closer to being invited to debates, right? So we have protest voting and we have giving that candidate viability, right? Maybe not this one, but maybe the next one. We don't know how many people are voting third party, but we do know that a lot of people are really, really dissatisfied with their options. So a lot of people may be voting third party. So the more people that do that, the more dissatisfaction is displayed, the more future viability for those third party candidates that get lots of votes. Okay, so there's two things. Influencing the major parties. Third party candidates historically have sometimes succeeded in getting their ideas adopted by one of the other parties, right? So, as an example, let's say Bill is running a third party ticket, right? And he's gaining traction because people really like what he's saying about bubblegum. Everybody's getting on board with it's Bill's bubblegum all over the place. Well, as the other two candidates are trying to get votes, they're going to start talking about bubblegum. They're going to start making that important because they understand they're gaining steam because of what they're talking about and people like it. These other two candidates want votes. So they're going to figure out how to try to steal that support from Bill. Bob, I can't remember what I called him. Okay. So that's the third one. You can influence future policies and platforms. Oh, Leon, Black Panthers, aka the lunch programs. Yes. Yes. Yeah, Leon's talking about that abortion debate. It goes every 2 to 4 years. It's going to change. Yeah. It's nuts. Okay. Number 4, challenging the political status quo. By consistently supporting third-party parties, voters begin to weaken the dominance of a two-party system, right? If we're consistently giving lots of votes to a third-party person, we are weakening the dominance of the two-party system. Although systemic changes, right, that need to happen are going to take some time. And here are some things that need to happen. Ranked voting. I love ranked voting, right? That really gets rid of that two-party dominance. Okay. Ranked voting is where there's 5 people running for president, right? And so on your ballot, all 5 people are on there and you put number 1 by your first choice, number 2 by your second choice, number 3 by your third choice, number 4 by your fourth choice. That's ranked voting. 5 by your 5th choice, right? That's ranked voting, right? And in the day and age of AI and supercomputers and all that, easy peasy, right? So if we did ranked voting instead of having an electoral college and a popular vote, that is more representative of what the people want, right? And it's not a winner takes all. It's not a one or the other, right? You most likely one of your first, second, or third choices is going to get the pregnancy presidency. Okay, so ranked choice voting is used in a lot of places where they wanted to get rid of biases. They want to get rid of dominance. This is the most legitimate form of voting. And we're still using stuff from the 1700s, a popular vote in an electoral college. Okay. Which is when they thought individual citizens shouldn't vote because they're all too stupid to vote. Okay. So ranked choice voting will make third-party candidates more competitive, consistent, can fuel grassroots movements. So, if that's something you're interested in, when people talk about abolishing the electoral college, talking about ranked choice voting is something that you can bring up as like, this is, if somebody says, what are you doing? I'm supporting ranked choice voting and abolishing the electoral college. That's what I'm doing. These are things that we can push for. I'm sorry, Adric. Rockies. Oh, you better hush your mouth. I'm not even. Okay. Principled voting. For many voters, the benefit of voting third party is personal integrity. Okay. At the end of the day, that's what it should come down to. You vote for the candidate that aligns closest with your personal beliefs and values, right? We don't settle for the lesser of two evils, right? This is a way to stay true to your beliefs and advocating for the policies, regardless of whether they win or don't. Okay. Don't let people catastrophize things for you. Okay. It's like the people who say, oh, if Trump wins, it's going to be the Handmaid's Tale. Well, he was in office for 4 years and it wasn't the Handmaid's Tale. Or man, we got to keep those Democrat liberals out of office, or all of our cats are going to turn gay. It's just the wacky doodle stuff. It's like end of the world stuff. And I'm sorry, every few years, Democrats are in office, and every few years, Republicans are in office. And yeah, the world's gone to shit, but none of this other stuff's happened. Excuse my language. The catastrophizing is nuts, right? So principled voting, that's important. Voting third party might not lead to immediate things, but it's one of those things that the longer we put it off on pushing for getting rid of these outmoded systems, the longer it's going to take, right? Because this is a bit of the long-term plan, right? We have to push for new ideas, encourage political reforms, make a statement. This is how we make a statement, right? If that's something you believe in, if you want to have more choices, these are the kind of things that we have to do. This has to be the plan to sow the seeds of change, right? Because the political system is very ingrained. It is very solid. It is pretty locked. We have two options that are backed by corporation and come from wealth. How different are they really? Okay. I just know they're not me, either one of them. Localism, is always an important thing. Support local business, agriculture, governance, kind of gets away from some of these, I can't make a change other places, or these faceless corporations, right? Initiatives like community supported agriculture, that's something you can back for more choices. It gives people a say where their food comes from. So then we can get more choices that align with our values. So the CSA, community supported agriculture, that may be something to look into. Adrian, don't remind people. Yes, I cursed. Oops. All right. So at the end of the day, the illusion of choice is ingrained. We're all here. In the freest country on earth, we have very little choice, very little, much at all. It affects the small choices that we make. It affects the big, huge choices that we make, from the food to the politicians. And it's often shaped by stuff we can't see because we're funneled in certain directions. But if we become aware of those limitations, right? Why those limitations are there, why people are funneling us in certain ways, and then supporting movements that restore our agency and autonomy, we can start to break free from those invisible chains, where our country has got us imprisoned in a certain way. And, we have to think long game, right? Because freedom is often hidden behind carefully curated options and movements, just like movements of control are a long-term game and have been going on for a very long time. The game of freedom has to also be played that way. We can't ever rest on our laurels. We have to play the short game and the long game. It's up to us to question things, to look into things, to push back and reclaim our power of choice. The very first step is seeing the illusion for what it is, and choosing to see the illusion for what it is the first real choice that you can make. All right. I appreciate, Rocky wants to know about the Daughters of Scotia. Look at resources from the literal Daughters of Scotia in Scotland, because if you look at other places, you will have some people that will give you all the receipts for why all of it is true. And then you will have some people who say it's a myth and it's all silliness and fun and games. So I would say start with actual documents from the Daughters of Scotia. This is from another show that we got. So you can start looking into that way. I appreciate the live tribe being here. You guys came through. I love when you guys are so active in the chat. That makes me, remember I'm talking to people and, we're having a conversation rather than me just like saying things into the void. This is why I like doing lives. I want to have conversation with people. I don't want to just like teach a thing. So I appreciate the live tribe being here so very much. Coming up on Wednesday, this is going to be a biggie. It's going to be long. And it's going to have so much information on Wednesday. It's 10 signs you have high spiritual intelligence. And that particular part is going to be a small portion, because the Let's Get Weird section and the tinfoil hat is where a vast majority of the information of that stuff is going to come from. And it's big and it's shocking and it's eye-opening. And I really hope everybody can be there on Wednesday. If not, hopefully you can see it on the replay. Following Sunday is the blame game. So we talked about it tonight, right? Blaming and shaming people. So it's a blame game, and we're going to look at self-reflection versus external accusations, right? And where all that stuff comes from. This helps our authenticity. I hope you guys kind of see where I'm going with things, that we have to get all the muck and the mud and the indoctrination and the goofiness out of the way, the game that we were born into out of the way, so we can be our authentic selves, right? So everything that I do is for that, so we can be as authentic as we possibly can. If you guys like today's video, please, please, please hit the like button. That helps the algorithm. If you didn't do it on the way in, please do it on the way out. For the replay gang, please hit the like button. It really does help me. Share this video where you think it's appropriate, right? So especially for those who need to wake up to the illusion of choice, right? Leon wants to talk about the Supreme Court someday. Yes, we can do that. So share the video with anybody you want to, really. But especially for people who need to hear about the illusion of choice, or they need to hear about the Electoral College, or they need to hear about a plan for actually bringing our freedom and choice back, an actual real plan, and isn't based in nationalism of some sort. You can share the video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Just under 30% of the people who watch are like ghost watching and haven't subscribed. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I do want to take a second to thank the subscribers. I hit 700 subscribers, and it just tickles me. It makes me so happy, and I appreciate you guys so much. I think it's amazing. It's interesting that 700 came up twice, because I have 700 subscribers and I need 700 more hours for monetization, where YouTube can pay me, which is what I want. So who doesn't want to be paid for their time? Everybody wants to be paid for their time. I just don't want to take it from individuals per se. So, that's what I want to do. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, especially if you want to continue having these thought experiments, these ideas, talking about philosophy, psychology, history, all those things to get us closer to the real you. And as always, have a nice Sunday, guys.